The Atlanta Braves get a big win on Wednesday as they close out their series in Pittsburgh with a sweep. Kyle Wright was excellent on the mound in this one, and the offense exploded with a couple of big innings, including a grand slam for Matt Olson that ended up in the Allegheny River. We'll talk about all that and also discuss the 2023 season a little bit with the schedule being released. We'll talk about who are the big names coming to Atlanta in 2023. All of that on today's episode of Lockedon Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Lockedon Braves, part of Lockedon Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball and check out my bio there to see where I'm covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com, where I've been the co-editor for several years. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves and send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, and that notification bell. Help support out the show a ton when you do that. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. We post episodes daily, 5 days a week, and are free and available on all platforms. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping Wednesday's game, the great performance from Kyle Wright, a big day for Matt Olson. And we're also going to be discussing the 2023 season as well, with the schedule being released, and talk about some of the highlights for next year. But as always, let's start with our game recap from Wednesday. The Braves get a 14-2 win. They sweep the series over the Pirates, and they pull within a game and a half of the New York Mets, who were idle on Wednesday. Now, the Mets start a 4-game series in Colorado, or against Colorado, on Thursday night, while the Braves are idle, and they have Jacob deGrom on the mound. So a good chance that the Mets pick that game back up and stretch it back out to 2. But Braves taking care of business where they needed to, beating the teams that they should, and that's really going to be what they have to do down the stretch here. The Mets schedule, as I talked about yesterday, gets very easy. They play 9 teams above 500 the rest of the way, while the Braves play 19. So a very difficult schedule for the Braves the rest of the way compared to the Mets. So Braves are going to have to take advantage of every opportunity that they have to sweep series, just like they did in Pittsburgh. So good to see them get it done. Starting pitching just continues to be great. And again, obviously you're going up against a Pirates team, one of the worst offenses in all of baseball. You would expect that, but really, since that series in New York against the Mets, where the Braves lost 4 of 5, the starting pitching has been on point. They were great in that revenge series against the Mets, and they were great against the Astros, and they were great again in this series against the Pirates, whether it was Odorizzi, Fried, and then Kyle Wright on Wednesday. They all were great, and they did so in a day game. The offense broke out in a day game, scoring 14 runs. Pitching has always been pretty solid in day games, but Kyle Wright was magnificent. 7 innings, just 2 hits, 1 walk, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts on 73 pitches. He was on his way to having a Maddox throwing a complete game in under 90 pitches if it wasn't for his offense putting up a ton of runs. Had some long innings, specifically that top of the 7th inning where the Braves scored 7 innings, or the top of the 8th inning, the Braves scored seven runs. I think that really hurt Kyle Wright's chances of going for a complete game, but he was certainly on his way to doing so. Just a magnificent performance. He really only had one somewhat stressful inning. That came in the 3rd inning, where the number 9 hitter, which number 9 hitters seem to give the Braves pitchers problems for whatever reason this year, but Tyler Heineman fouled off some tough pitches and worked a walk in an 8-pitch at bat. Kyle Wright's only walk of the day. And then the next batter, O'Neal Cruz, hit the hardest ball ever recorded in the StatCast era, which goes back to 2015, at 122.4 miles per hour. So Perhaps that at bat, Tyler Heineman had something to do with it. Kyle Wright getting a little fatigued in that inning, but he left one right down the middle. And Oneil Cruz, as we know, can hit fastballs, as we saw in this series, and he absolutely crushed that ball, the hardest hit ball ever in the StatCast era, like I said. However, because of that high wall, that 21-inch wall out in right field, it did not get out. It went off the top of the wall and bounced right to Acuna to hold him for a single. So the hardest hit ball ever recorded goes down as a single. That's the way things work out in baseball sometimes. But that was really the only stressful inning for Kyle Wright in the 7 innings that he pitched. Overall, he got 15 swings and misses, 8 of them coming on the curveball, 6 of them on the changeup. So those 2 off-speed pitches were really working for him, and it was really a tale of 2 halves with those 2 pitches, really working that curveball a lot early on. And then in the second half of the game, really kind of switched it up to that changeup and got 6 swings and misses on 10 swings against his changeup. So it became a very effective pitch for him. And that can become very big later on as you look to add pitches and keep hitters off balance, especially when you get in the postseason. So that's huge to give Kyle Wright the confidence to know he can go to that changeup if he needs to throw another wrinkle in there, especially against left-handed hitters, being able to dive that away from them. Kyle Wright also had 11 called strikes in this game and an 81.1 mile per hour average exit velocity against. That is very low, a lot of weak contact, only allowed 4 hard hit balls on 15 put in play against him. So again, just a dominating performance. And one thing very interesting in this start is the velocity was up. And you'll remember, he got shut down for a little bit because of some arm fatigue. And one of his starts, his velocity was down a couple of miles per hour. And then he got skipped to start, looked really good his last time out. And then on Wednesday, it was up almost 2 miles per hour. It was up 1.3 miles per hour on the sinker and then 1.9 mile per hour on the curveball and changeup. So very interesting there. Maybe that rest really did him so good and kind of refreshed him, but he was throwing the ball really well on Wednesday. He picked up his 16th win of the year, and so he's now tied for the National League lead in wins, and it dropped his ERA under 3, which is very significant as well, at 2.99. And you look at his last 10 starts now, he's given up 2 earned or less in 8 of those 10 starts, and he's gone at least 6 innings in 9 of 10. And the only game over that stretch that he didn't go 6 innings, it was because of a 2-hour rain delay against the Cardinals. So you look at what Kyle Wright has done over his last 10 starts now, he has been really good. And you kind of look at his entire season now, where, of course, he's been really good, but he started out so hot in the month of April, kind of dipped in the next couple of months, was more of a 3.5 to 4 ERA pitcher. And now we're looking at the last, 2 months of work or month and a half or so, and he's been really good once again. So Kyle Wright proving, I kind of joked with Grant McCauley on the postcast, Brian Snitker's got a tough choice to make with how he wants to build his postseason rotation with how all of these guys are pitching right now. I mean, Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Spencer Strider, Kyle Wright, all throwing the ball extremely well, making you feel really good about the Braves' chances in the postseason going up against other teams' rotations. But Kyle Wright's been outstanding. And you think about, we talked about offensively the other day, how big Michael Harris has been and how much he has meant to this team. How big has Kyle Wright meant for his breakout in 2022? The Braves were struggling to find that 5th starter early. Ian Anderson was having his struggles. Charlie Morton was up and down, especially early in the season. And Kyle Wright's been that guy really behind Max Fried that has come on and kind of broken out this season and been a really big staple of this rotation. So we all kind of thought it could happen after the year he had in AAA last year, and then coming on in the biggest stage in all of baseball in the World Series last year and putting up some good numbers. We all thought this was the potential for him to have a breakout season. He has certainly been that for him, and it's been huge for the Braves rotation. The offense also had a big day on Wednesday, including a big day for Matt Olson. We'll talk about that next. You're hanging out with friends, putting back a few drinks. Few becomes a few too many. As the evening nears, it comes to an end. People start to head out for the night. and you think about calling a ride, but say, nah, it's not, you don't live too far away. I'll go ahead and risk it. It's not a big deal. What's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, your insurance goes up, you lose your job, you total your car, or you end up injuring yourself or someone else. Everyone knows about the risk of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that doesn't stop people from doing it and getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers to save your lives and the lives of others. So if you're thinking you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. The offense had a big day on Wednesday. Talked about it, how the offense has struggled in day games, but that was not the case on Wednesday. They scored 14 runs on 14 hits with 8 walks and 11 strikeouts, 7 for 16 with runners in scoring position, 9 left on base. And I find this stat here very interesting. In the last 41 innings, the Braves have scored a single run just once. So in the last 41 innings, they've scored 1 run in an inning just once. However, in 9 of those 41 innings, the Braves have scored multiple runs. So when they're scoring runs, they're coming in bunches. Now, for a fan, that can be a bit frustrating because you're hoping to see your offense, throughout the game continually add on runs and put up runs. But when they're having 5-run innings, as they did twice in this series, or 7-run inning, as they did in the 8th inning on Wednesday, you certainly take that, and those are fun innings. But I just thought that was a very interesting stat for the Braves offense. They have been scoring in bunches lately when they do score. 12 hard hit balls in the game on Wednesday, 9 of them over 100 miles per hour, and 8 of those 9 were hits. So hitting the ball hard, as often is the case, usually tends to pan out and work out well. So the Braves are certainly doing that on Wednesday. And Matt Olson had a big day, a 3-hit day for him. He got a pair of doubles and then hit a grand slam into the Allegheny River out there in Pittsburgh, the first Braves player to put one out there. And you look at the season for Matt Olson now, 39 doubles and 27 home runs. He's got a chance for 40 doubles and 30 home runs. I haven't had a chance to look this up, but I can't imagine that's done too often. So on pace for a really good season for extra base hits for Matt Olson. 87 runs batted in now, so he's approaching 100. 60 walks as well, leads the team in that. And look, I get it. He's going to continually be compared to Freddie Freeman and what Freddie Freeman's doing in LA. Look, Freddie Freeman's an MVP candidate. Matt Olson is not. But that doesn't take away from what Matt Olson has done for this team. And he's done exactly what you want him to do. And that's drive in runs and hit for power. Would I love him to poke the ball the other way a little bit more and get some singles, which is really the only difference between him and Freddie Freeman is Freddie will shorten up and take the ball the other way and take his singles. Matt doesn't really do that. Matt's looking to do damage. But again, I think that's exactly what this Braves team needs from him, especially with where you have him hitting now, which is in that 4th spot, which is where I think he needs to be, driving in runs, again, using that extra base power. I think that's become a great spot for Matt Olson, who hit second a lot early in the year. And I understood that decision well because he has good at bats and he will take his walks. But I think he becomes more beneficial to this Braves lineup if you put him in that 4th spot where he can drive in those runs with all those extra base hits. So big day for Matt Olson on Wednesday, and really just looking at the totality of his season with the Braves, he's really been great and delivered big. There's a big error for the Pirates in this inning that really kind of broke things open. In that 3rd inning, first baseman let a ball just kind of go through his legs there that scored a run, and it led to 5 unearned runs in that inning. That really kind of broke things open. Mitch Keller for the Pirates was actually throwing a pretty good game. William Contreras got him for a 2-run homer in the 2nd inning on a great swing on a slider down and away. But outside of that, I thought Keller was throwing the ball pretty well. It was kind of piling up some strikeouts for a guy who doesn't strike out a lot. But that error certainly broke things open. The Braves just continued to dunk balls in here and there and put up a big inning, and that really, ended the game right there. And you could see the Pirates' frustration really after that. is they just didn't want to be there. You could see it in their at-bats, their body language really was just kind of killer to anything the Pirates had going on Wednesday, and credit to the Braves for just continually adding on. When a team opens the door like that, they pounded through it and continued to add on runs. Robbie Grossman had a big day. He had a 3-hit day as well. In 17 games since joining the Braves, he's slashing 260, 339, 420, 2 doubles, and 2 home runs. And he came over to primarily play against lefties to platoon with Eddie Rosario, but because Ozuna's been so bad and whatever's going on with him off the field, and the fact that Grossman's held his own against righties, he's in the lineup every day now. And I think he gives a different element, different dimension to this lineup. The fact that he can work in a bat and take his walks. He has a 340 on base percentage, like I said, since joining the Braves. So really like what Robbie Grossman's been able to do. Everyone had a hit in this game except Vaughn Grissom, which is just funny to kind of even think about with how good the rookie has been. But he went 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. It's just the third time in 15 games this year that he didn't get a hit. It's only the second time that he struck out more than once in a game. And I certainly hope I did not jinx him, talking about him being the NL Rookie of the Month on yesterday's podcast, but I think he'll be all right. I certainly think he'll bounce back, but I thought that was just interesting that with how great he's been lately and the big offensive day from the Braves on Wednesday, Vaughn Grissom was the only one not to get a hit. And then lastly, on the offense, I'm going to write a deeper article on Tomahawk Take, so be looking out for that. But I really want to dive into the aggressiveness of the Braves and if it is truly that beneficial for them. We talked about the big 5-run inning they had on Tuesday, and they did all of that in a 20-pitch inning. They're so aggressive early in counts. Is that really beneficial? Does that strategy really work for the Braves? Again, I'm going to dive deeper in that in an article form on tomahawktake.com, but I did want to throw a couple of numbers out there at you. The Braves have the 8th most at-bats on the first pitch. That doesn't mean they don't swing at the first pitch the most. That just means they have the most results on first pitches of an at-bat. So, and again, that's 8th most. That's much lower than I thought it would have been. And even with that, they have the 4th most hits in all of baseball on the first pitch. Again, with them having the 8th most at bats, the more you do it, the more hits you're going to have. So you can't really look into that too much. The 2nd most home runs, again, the more you do it, the more you're going to have. But when you start looking at average numbers, they're 3rd. They have the 3rd best average on first pitches. They're 1st in slugging, and they're 1st in OPS. So just preliminary look at some of the numbers, I would say their first pitch swinging does have some benefits and has paid off for the Braves more often than not. But again, I want to dive deeper into that in an article format. So look for that on tomahawktake.com. Finally, from Wednesday, into with a little bit of bad news. Kirby Yates is not the answer right now. He continues to struggle. He blew the shutout in the 9th inning, giving up a couple of runs, including a home run. Alex Anthopoulos said when he signed him, they were getting Kirby Yates for 2023, not necessarily 2022, but certainly a lot of you like myself were hoping that Kirby Yates could come in, be a big part of this bullpen at the back end. That's just not the case right now. And it's really just command. He's leaving a lot of pitches up, that splitter staying up, that fastball, which is 92 or 93, not locating it well. And when you're not doing that, you're obviously going to get hit pretty hard. And that's the case for Kirby Yates right now. So again, I think we have to keep in mind this guy hasn't pitched in over 2 years, trying to come back, find that location. I think that's good to keep in mind when we're talking about Mike Soroka as well, who hasn't pitched in 2 years. That's why we really can't expect much from him right now. But as far as Kirby Yates go right now, you just can't trust him. I don't think he can really be a huge part of what you're doing in your bullpen this year from what we've seen from him. But overall, a good day on Wednesday. The Braves get a sweep, get a big win. Kyle Wright was great. The offense was great, and certainly love to see big stress-free wins like that. Next, want to turn our attention to 2023, even though there's still a lot to do in 2022, but with the schedule for next season release, we'll talk about the highlights from that next. Starting in 2023, the Major League Baseball has announced that the schedule will be more balanced and every team will face every team, trying to make things a little bit more even. I kind of like that idea, but with that, you're only going to play your division opponents 13 times instead of 19. So kind of limits your opportunity against division opponents. But still, I do like the idea of being able to see every team every year. You have an opportunity for, the best players in the game to come to your home ballpark more often. We bring up the Mike Trout example, hasn't been here in forever. I don't even know if Mike Trout's ever been here. I know if it has, it's been a long time. We're hoping to see that this year, but he was injured. But now you'll get another chance in 2023. So I do like that part of this schedule change. But I do think ultimately you're going to have to change up divisions. I think ultimately we're just going to go to a completely fair and even schedule, making it evenly spread throughout all the teams, and then just have 2 leagues and no divisions or something like that, because that just seems to be the way that we're going. If you really want to make things equal and fair for everybody, I think that's where you ultimately have to go. But I like the division rivalry. I like the division opponent aspect of baseball, but I think we're going to get further and further away from that. Something that is pretty common that we're not going to get away from, and that's the Braves starting on the road. And again, in 2023, they will start the year on the road. They'll begin it against the Nationals on March 31st. And just frustrating. It seems like the Braves always start on the road. The only reason they started at home this year is because the season got delayed and pushed back. But I don't know what the Braves got to do to get the schedule makers to give them a home opener for the season beginning, but will not be the case in 2023. Their home opener will instead be on Thursday, April the 6th against the Padres, and they play the Padres again the 17th through the 19th of April. So we'll avoid Tatis, but if you were looking forward to seeing him, you won't get to see him this year either, as the Braves play the Padres twice in April and then are done with them for the rest of the season. The Astros come back to Atlanta April 21st through 23rd, so that'll be a fun matchup at home. The first Mets series will be on April 28th in New York. It's actually a 4-game series that ends on Monday, which is a little unusual. Freddie Freeman and the Dodgers come to Atlanta May 22nd through 24th, so pretty early in the season again. The Mets' first trip to Atlanta isn't until June the 6th, so that's pretty odd again with less games against division opponents, but Mets don't come to Atlanta until June. The All-Star game's on July 11th. The Angels, like I mentioned earlier, come back to Atlanta July 31st through August 2nd, so hopefully you'll get a chance to see Mike Trout, maybe Ohtani again if he doesn't get traded this offseason. Yankees come to Atlanta August 14th through 16th. I'm sure that'll be a big series. The Braves are done with the Mets after August 23rd. So after August 23rd, no more games against the Mets, which is kind of, again, unusual. You think you'd finish the year against your division rivals, but not the case in 2023. The Braves do have a lot of games in September against the Phillies, who obviously could be another big division rival next year. Braves have a big West Coast trip at the end of August and into September as they play the Giants, Rockies, and then 4 games in LA against the Dodgers. So that'll be a tough little West Coast trip there towards the end of the season. But things get very easy in the last week of 2023 for the Braves if they play 3 at Washington and then get their last 6 games at home with 3 against the Cubs and 3 against the Nationals. A pretty soft schedule to end the year. But like I said, a lot left to be done in 2022, but if you're planning ahead for 2023, those are some of the best matchups the Braves have, at least in terms of home games, mostly that I was going over. But you can go check that out. We got an article up on that over at tomahawktake.com as well. That will do it for this episode of Lockedon Braves. Thank you for making Lockedon Braves your first listen of the day. Now go make a Lockedon MLB your second listen, where MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and a unique perspective on every team, talking about the biggest stories from around the league. Again, thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at @ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.